Hey everybody, and welcome back to another max velocity weather forecast. And in today's forecast, we'll be talking about a massive winter storm that'll impact the United States over the next few days, along with the potential for 2 severe weather outbreaks over the next 72 hours. I'll give you the latest breakdown on both of these situations and more in this forecast, but let's first begin with what's happening across the United States today, beginning with the Central Plains, where you may notice a very well-defined spiral which is actually coming from a very strong low pressure system. This has actually brought blowing dust to areas like the Southern Plains due to how high the winds are with this low pressure system due to a very strong pressure gradient. And in addition to that, this low pressure system will bring a blizzard to the Northern Plains over the next 36 hours, which I'll go over here in just a moment. Additionally, we are watching a low pressure system developing over the Rocky Mountains. This will be the strongest of the 2 low pressure systems that occurred this week. This will bring severe weather. Additionally, a large winter storm that'll expand anywhere from Colorado back through the Midwest over the next few days. So a big system to watch as we go into tomorrow, Thursday, and Friday. So over the next few days, we'll be watching this low pressure system that's centered over the Central Plains right now move further off to the north and east. It should be out of the United States no later than Wednesday night. Going into late Wednesday into Thursday morning is when that next low pressure system will develop over the Central Plains. This one will bring much stronger threats in terms of severe weather, that could also bring some tornadoes, damaging winds, and as well as hail. And we'll also be watching for a winter storm out of this low pressure system from Colorado all the way back through the Midwest. This low pressure system will also be fairly quick, which means these events will only last a few days, but for the days that they last, they will cause some pretty big impacts to the United States. Now, in terms of the watches and warnings this afternoon and evening, there are a ton of them. We have wind advisories in effect all the way from the Southern Plains into the Midwest. It is a very large area for the wind advisories due to that very strong pressure gradient that we have with that low pressure system. Back through the Central Plains and even through the Rocky Mountains, there are winter storm warnings in effect for the pink boxes, winter storm watches in effect all the way back through Iowa, and then winter weather advisories in effect for the Northern Plains. Blizzard warnings are in effect back up in areas like Minnesota and the Dakotas. So it's a very large event that we're watching. 2 different low pressure systems will bring 2 big problems to the United States. So beginning with tonight, the low pressure system that's over the Central Plains will quickly move out to the north and east, bringing some snowfall to those in Minnesota and through the Dakotas. Now, it's not going to be very long lasting. This can be about a 6 to 12 hour snow event at most, so the snow amount will not be that high. The big concern will be the winds, because that will cause those blizzard-like conditions. Right now, the HRR model is estimating somewhere between about 1 to 5 inches in where those blizzard warnings are in effect. So those in western Minnesota back through northeast South Dakota, that is where we're going to be watching for the highest snowfall totals, probably between 2 to 4 inches, with an isolated spot or 2 maybe closer to 6 inches. But as I mentioned previously, the winds will be the biggest concern, because this is what will cause those blizzard-like conditions. Wind gusts are likely to reach upwards of 45 to 55 miles per hour overnight tonight into tomorrow morning. Major travel impacts are expected through the early morning hours and probably through about lunchtime before the winds subside a bit more as we pass lunchtime into the afternoon hours. Wind gusts will only be about 20 to 30 miles per hour, which means that blowing snow and drifting will become a lot less likely in those regions. Now, for the Central Plains tonight, there will just be some showers, maybe a couple of storms in northwest Missouri. There's actually a very low tornado threat tonight due to some wind shear over that direction. But going into Wednesday is when we'll be watching a winter storm start to develop over areas in the Rocky Mountains and back through Colorado and New Mexico. This will really ramp up Wednesday afternoon, and it will start to move through Kansas, where a few inches of snow does seem to be likely at this point. Kansas City also could even see some snow going overnight Wednesday into Thursday morning before that low pressure system starts to move more off to the north and east. So for right now, the HRR model all the way through about Kansas is where it's about accurate. Anywhere further off to the north and east is a bit more variant, because the HRR model only goes 48 hours out from this model run. So anywhere in the Central Plains, for the most part, there will be a nice range of 3 to 6 inches, with a couple of areas maybe getting upwards of even a foot of snow. Wouldn't rule it out. It's a very low chance, and it would remain very isolated. Areas near Kansas City currently forecasted to be in that 1 to 3 inch range, with maybe slightly higher totals being possible. Once we go through the Midwest, that is where the snow will really ramp up in these areas as well. Again, this will be a pretty quick moving low pressure system, so we're not talking about feet of snow, but we are still talking about several inches of snow. So those in the Midwest will at least see some snowfall. Chicago even could see a little bit of snow going into the overnight hours Thursday into Friday morning. Michigan will have its shot of snow going into the overnight hours Thursday as well. In terms of snowfall accumulation, we'll be talking about a thin little area. It's about 50 to 100 miles wide, where we'll be talking most likely upwards of 3 to 6 inches of snow. Isolated amounts closer to maybe 10 inches are not out of the question. Near Chicago, you probably will at least get somewhere around a coating. But obviously, that is dependent on no big changes to the current forecast, which obviously we're still a few days out, so things may change a little bit. But for right now, I would at least expect maybe around a coating to an inch. There's a possibility for slightly higher amounts of snow if that low pressure system is slightly further to the south. And now for the severe weather, which is actually going to cover a massive area both Wednesday and Thursday. But Wednesday is going to be about half the size as what Thursday's severe weather threat will be. Beginning with tomorrow, there is a slight risk from Texas all the way back through areas in Kentucky. Main concern will be damaging winds and maybe some large hail. A tornado threat will exist as well. So we'll probably see a couple of tornadoes. A couple of main points of interest to be watching for severe weather will be anywhere from southern Oklahoma and maybe north Texas, and as well as back through maybe southern Arkansas and northern Louisiana. Those are my two areas where I would expect at least a tornado or two. So beginning with tomorrow afternoon, we'll have a couple of areas to watch. So first, beginning with southern Oklahoma, a little cluster of storms will likely develop for those in southern Oklahoma and north Texas. This will be an area to watch for damaging winds, large hail, and again, maybe a tornado or two. Going through the evening hours, we'll also be watching another development area, which will be from a ton of moisture out of the Gulf of Mexico. If there is enough wind shear, we may see a tornado or two out of one of these cells. I would expect if there were to be a tornado for it to be brief and weak. Along that frontal boundary, that is where we may see maybe a bit more of a stronger tornado in comparison to areas back over through areas in the lower Mississippi Valley. And as we go through the overnight hours Wednesday and the Thursday morning, we'll be watching for that cold front that may produce a storm or two along it. Mainly just gonna be gusty winds there, but our next area to watch will be back through the Mississippi Valley into the Ohio Valley, and as well as the Dixie Valley. In fact, on Thursday, there is a massive slight risk of severe weather. This goes all the way back through Lake Erie. This is a very rare event for this time of the year, by the way. And even the marginal threat goes into the very furthest southeast point of Michigan. It is a very large area that we're watching. Obviously, it does extend all the way back down to the Gulf Coast. All modes of severe weather do appear possible. That does include damaging winds, large hail, and a tornado threat. So going through the morning hours Thursday, we'll be watching storms in the lower Mississippi Valley. These will be capable of all modes of severe weather. Damaging winds is my main concern, with a few tornadoes. And eventually going through Friday morning, storms will likely continue, transitioning to more of just some scattered storm activity on Friday. Severe weather looks unlikely for right now. And similar timing for severe weather in the Ohio Valley looks to be more likely during the early afternoon hours, maybe a couple of isolated severe storms during the evening before this low pressure system all moves out going into Friday. Thanks for watching. This forecast is brought to you by Platinum Contracting.